Thank you very much for coming tonight. We really appreciate your attendance. We're going to start off this evening. I have a few procedural things to go through. Cheryl is going to make a presentation for about half an hour to present some ideas and where we're at. And you've heard lots about that in the community already. We're going to talk about it again tonight. After Cheryl's presentation, Mayor Maloney is going to say a few words, and we are going to have an open mic. It's going to sit in the middle of this row, and you will be welcome to come up to the mic and ask a question. Everybody will have 2 minutes. That will give us an hour and 15 minutes of questions. At the just before 2 minutes is up, I will stand up to let you know that your time is finished, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. We hope very much to get as many people up to the mic as possible. If there's anyone that has mobility issues or is not able to stand at the microphone, I'd ask you to put your hand up, and I will visit you with this microphone and give you an opportunity to speak so that you don't have to stand in the line. I'd like to also welcome, there's a number of people here tonight, mayors and representatives from other municipalities in Muskoka and beyond. Mayor Peter Kelly is here from Port Carling. Mayor Maloney is here from the town of Bracebridge. Mayor Rod Ward is here from Armour Township. Our MPP Graydon Smith, Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, is also here. We also have some members from our board. That would be Anna Landry, Colleen Nisbet, Dr. Joe Gleason, who's in the room at the back. Joe, do you want to put your hand up? Thank you. We also have a number of people listening online. We're doing a webinar tonight on Zoom, so we have many people listening, so there may be other board members on the line, and we welcome all of those that are listening as here tonight. So with that, I would ask Cheryl to go ahead and make her presentation.
Thank you, Maureen. How's that for sound? Okay, Josh? We're trying a different device tonight, so just to let folks know, we are recording tonight. The meeting is being recorded for the purpose of live streaming on Zoom. So we've got, how many people on live Zoom right now? Do you know there, Tracy? Okay. 400? 330, okay. So those folks are on there, and we may be shared on our official website and social media channels as well. And by attending this meeting on Zoom, you consent to being recorded and understand that your participation may be visible to a wider audience. So we will start off with our land acknowledgement. Or not. Thank you, Josh. So we, Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare, acknowledge that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe. We wish to deepen our understanding of the culture of the local Indigenous communities to develop appropriate, culturally safe healthcare services by building trust through respectful relationships that acknowledge past harms and mistakes to move forward in the spirit of truth and reconciliation based on the 7 grandfather teachings, Miigwech. So before we get started, I would like to introduce our panel, members from the senior team and our redevelopment project team. To begin with, Mary Silverthorne is our Associate Vice President of People and our Chief Human Resource Officer. Mary comes with 34 years of public service experience. She spent 23 of those 34 years with our OPP, and she also has hospital experience. Melissa Bilodeau is our Chief Nursing Executive. She's 19 years as a registered nurse, both in clinical and in leadership at MAC, and her background is in critical care. Dr. Khalid Abdurazik is our Chief of Staff for the last 5 years at MAC. His background is an obstetrician and gynecologist with 35 years experience, and 20 of those years in North Simcoe, Muskoka. Khalid also brings a wealth of leadership experience over the last 13 years. Alistair Smith is our Vice President of Corporate Services with 35 years in healthcare, including extensive experience with redevelopment projects around the province. And Tammy Tkachuk, I hope, is in the room. She's our board liaison. She's been with the organization 19 years. She's our historian on lots of things around redevelopment. So thank you, Tammy, for your assistance tonight. Tim Miller is our Director of Facilities and Capital Project Manager, and he has 7 years at Muskoka, Algonquin. He's an engineer by background, and I always say at every session that Tim is the fellow that you want to ask the questions about our infrastructure of our 2 hospitals, and he will tell you where all the broken bones of our buildings are and what we have ahead of us. And he's probably one of the first ones that's really looking forward to having new development at our hospital. Maureen introduced herself as she's our board chair for 9 years. I'd also like to recognize Maureen's role in redevelopment related to local share. We've done a lot of work past year on securing a plan for $225 million. And kudos to Maureen, and kudos to all of our board members who have worked really hard as we've been on this journey. So the greatest gift that we can give our communities is building not just 2 new hospitals, but actually building a healthcare system for the future. And we want to make sure that as we're looking at building these hospitals, we are looking at more than that. We want a healthcare system that's affordable. We want it to be future driven so that we're building healthcare services. Okay, thank you. So that we can build a healthcare system that is affordable, it's sustainable, and it's offering expanded services and new services that we don't have today. Before I get into the presentation, I want to reassure people that what you're going to see tonight has been a concept that we have come up with over the journey of development of these new hospitals. We are here tonight to listen, to understand, and to go forward so that we can build a healthcare system with 2 new hospitals for the future of healthcare 10, 20, and 30 years beyond. The catchment area slide that you see there, again, just to kind of reinforce, we've got over 4,000 square kilometers that we serve our population. It's broken down there in the 66,000 in Muskoka. We've got another 12,500 in Almaguin, which again is out of the district of Muskoka. And we get 80,000 seasonal visitors a year in Muskoka. We get 3.2 million visitors, and of those, 1 million come through Algonquin Park. So it just gives the perspective of the areas that we serve, not quite yet, and want to say that all of the people in these areas have a 30-minute drive time to either one of our emergency departments. Our journey slide. So this is an important slide to take a look at where we've been over the last 10, 12 years. We have had many different models that we've had to look at for various reasons. Starting back in 2015 was when one hospital was proposed. A lot of work went into that model as well, and a lot of discussion went on about that model, and the determination in 2017 under ministry direction was that we look at one organization with 2 acute care hospitals. During 2017 and 19, before we got into further planning, there had been a lot of questions about our hospitals and whether or not we could renovate them. And so a lot of work went into having a look at what we could possibly do with both of our sites. And I can tell you that Tim can tell you that it would be highly, highly disruptive if we could. But secondly, the code in our buildings, it would cost an outrageous amount of money to even try to renovate them. So when we got our planning grant, thank you to the government for our $15 million planning grant to plan our 2 sites. We went out during February and September of last year looking at our current model, which is a lot of duplication of services at both sites. But that's what we started with in terms of looking at our planning. And we spent a lot of time taking a look too at whether or not we could make any changes. And I have to say, the folks that were at these user groups were really challenging each other on what are we doing today, what could we do different in the future. But as it ended up in September, we went out and had it costed because we had heard a lot of discussion about the cost of construction, and especially in the healthcare sector. So in September, the costing came back, costing estimates, and we were sitting at almost 50% over budget of $1 billion budget. The good thing, I guess, was we were told we weren't alone. There's a lot of hospitals that were at the same stage we were, and some of them were even as high as 60%. So what do? We had great conversation with the ministry, with our capital branch partners, Infrastructure Ontario, and they really encouraged us to see if we could go back and look at a model, still 2 sites, still 2 acute care hospitals, but could we look at being innovative? Could we have a look and see if we can reduce duplication of services and see what we could come up with? So we went back to our user groups with a proposed model, of which you're going to see tonight. Again, I stress it was proposed. Our user groups are the ones that had done the work all summer long on the model that we didn't feel was going to be sustainable, and said, okay, what can you do with something like this? So during November right through to January, we had about 5 or 6 more larger user group meetings. We socialized the idea. They came back and said, no, this won't work. We should look at this. And so by January, the 19th actually, was when we finalized the model, proposed model. It's not fait accompli. We know we still have work to do on it, but it was a model that we could come out and start to discuss broader than just the user groups. I want to say that during that time, we also, we were listening and we were making changes. So one of the changes was around ICU at one of the sites, and we heard the feedback, we worked with our consultants, and we came back to actually making a change there as well. Our process for planning, very extensive, very iterative. Over 250 people were involved in these user groups, and each of the user groups had a focus, a lot of clinical focus, obviously, and then there were even some focus groups that were looking at things like front lobby and back office services and where they needed to be and what kind of services needed to be next to other services. We also have a great group of consultants, healthcare planners and architects that work largely in healthcare and beyond just Ontario, but in Canada and beyond. So they were bringing us new ideas, new options on how we could design our new hospitals. And the community engagement we had last year, and many of you were at those, where we were talking about local share and site selection. But what we really heard at, as well was what people wanted in healthcare in the future. Needs new batteries? So some of the things that we heard that we thought this new proposed model or prototype could answer some of those questions. We heard people said, please, if there's opportunities for new services that we don't have in Muskoka today, but we can look to the future and perhaps have, please consider that as you're looking at future planning, as well as expanding services. And we talk to people who, are traveling sometimes an hour down the road for a follow-up appointment. Is there the possibility to do more virtual care, for example? And the other thing that we heard was about improving care by concentrating patient services. And please, we're spending a lot of money on these hospitals from our local share, plus the government envelope is just under $1 billion. Please make sure that we're not duplicating and we're getting good value. We also heard a lot about the worry about building these 2 new sites and then being able to operate them in the future. Please make sure what we're building isn't going to be empty and we're not going to be able to afford to operate them. And this is an important piece because as part of the planning submission, the government now is looking very early on at what we're proposing and kind of doing some cost estimates on what it's going to cost to operate. because they also don't want to invest in hospitals that they're not going to be able to support in operating dollars. The other thing that we heard, and we know we've been experiencing it day in and day out, even well before COVID, is making sure that whatever we build is going to enhance and increase sustainability for our health human resources. I'm just going to take a drink, sorry. Good, thank you. So there are big risks in terms of not moving forward with some sort of model. One is, we've got services that are low volume. We're already having challenges with some of them. And so to not keep our momentum going on developing a model that is going to be sustainable and affordable in the future, we run the risk every year that we delay that we're going to have other services with challenges. We also know, I'm sure if I ask for hands up, how many people have been in our emergency departments, the crowding over capacity is overwhelming, I will say, and you'll see with the expanded build, we're going to hopefully be able to reduce that. But again, we need to take our time, but we also need to keep going because every year is another year of overcrowding and issues in our emergency department. Our aging buildings are deteriorating, so every year we wait to move forward or slow down. We're putting money into these buildings. And in some cases, we can't, even if we had all the money in the world, we aren't able to do things like sprinkler systems or firewall separations. And those are two very real challenges that we have in our hospitals today. Project planning delays also can drive our future construction costs. There's inflation every year, and now that we're on a schedule every year that we go out, there's that risk. Through conversations, we've been given some assurance that we will try to keep this project within the timeline, so there won't be those type of budget impacts. So look forward to hearing. I look forward to hearing that. As well as losing our place in the provincial queue. As I said, there's a number of hospitals that are in the same boat as us, and there's a number of hospitals that are waiting to get into queue because of the same reasons. We've got a lot of hospitals in the province that have aging infrastructure and really would like to get in the queue for their hospital to be rebuilt. So I will talk about the concept that we have been bringing forward as a model. First off, talking about 2 acute care hospitals in both communities, in Bracebridge and Huntsville. One site is going to look more predominantly on outpatient and ambulatory care services, which is actually the way of the future, as well as having one site that's predominantly looking at inpatient services that can actually support our future needs for our aging population. And then there's the connection with our community, which we've shown great strides in terms of providing partnership and providing services that aren't in the 4 walls of a hospital. And we want to be able to do more of that. Yep, thank you. So today in Bracebridge, on the left-hand side, you'll see the services we have and the services we are proposing to have in the future. This is not, I've heard lots of rumors, this is just going to be a small little hospital, not going to amount to much. Those are some of the words that we've heard. It is going to be a very big acute care hospital. It's going to be doing all of the ambulatory care services, for the most part, day surgeries. We are in this model looking at having beds that would support that type of service. So having what we call shorter stay beds that would support our emergency department for some admissions, as well as any surgical patients that would need to stay in. Just as a number, about 90% of our day surgery now is surgeries that go home. So the amount of beds is adjusted for that. We would also, and this was a change that we heard from clinicians, will have a 4-bed ICU in this model. Why? Because it was felt by the clinicians that to run a full-service emergency department 24 hours a day, it was important to have this level of ICU care. This is the same level of ICU care that we provide today at both sites. Emergency, almost well over doubling, going from 11 stretchers to 27 stretchers. The volume for Emerge in Bracebridge is expected over the next 10 years to go up about 2,000. In Huntsville, the focus, as I said, is on looking at complex, longer stay patients that require still acute care, but we're talking about our aging population, people that get complex issues that not only need acute care stay, but they also will likely need rehab or reactivation. Huntsville is a designated stroke facility, and that was determined many years ago based on geography and location to the next stroke center to the north and to the south. For stroke, you do need to have an acute care stroke program, and pleased that we actually had to get a designation for that, and that's taken a few years, believe it or not, but we were happy to receive that just before Christmas. We are also going to have programming that's called reactivation, and again, these are the type of services that when people have come into hospital and have to stay a bit longer, will be able to be reactivated and can get home in a timely way. A level 3 ICU, 10 of those. We're really excited about this because this is a service in critical care that we currently don't have. And in this proposed model, we have 14 ICU beds to figure out. So we put 4 at Bracebridge and 10, but now at that opportunity, we can actually make it into a level 3 ICU. At a level 3 ICU, we'll be able to look after patients, again, that are very complex, require longer, more complex ventilation support, and many other things that currently, if you or a loved one needs a level 3 ICU today, you actually have to leave Muskoka. You have to go to Barrie, Orillia, or to the GTA. I have had very positive feedback from our regional critical care lead, Dr. Mark Bailey, who really supports that this, for the way forward in terms of the critical care system, both locally and for the province, is definitely the way to go. The other area that we proposed in this model is single siting or focusing and concentrating our obstetrical program. Currently, we are just under 300 deliveries a year across 2 sites. In the future, again, our population is growing in the aging folks and staying pretty much flat for the childbearing ages. So we aren't looking at an increase in births. And so the importance when you're doing a low volume of obstetrics is to concentrate it. One of the important things that we're doing this for as well is for the sustainability of staffing. It's very difficult to maintain the staffing across 2 sites when 20% of the time the nurses that are trained to be obstetrical nurses are only doing the type of work they like 20% of the time. Huntsville 2 will go up to 27 emergency bays, and their volume is targeted to go up about 3,000 visits a year. The other services in Bracebridge, which again is focused on the ambulatory side of things and surgery, is going from a significant increase in diagnostic services, because a lot of our diagnostic services, except for the ones that you have to use for inpatient or for emergency, are usually scheduled type of services. So we're going to focus and concentrate those at Bracebridge. There's a list there of the different surgery services. Again, consolidating those that we were doing in Huntsville as well as in Bracebridge, all at the Bracebridge campus. Those are some of the examples of the surgeries we do today. Again, pretty excited about the fact that we will be able to, in a model like this, where we're concentrating day surgery, we're going to be able to expand services like orthopedics, hip and knee replacements, And again, with our aging population, having that type of service close to home 10, 20 years from now is really important. And again, a lot of support from our regional orthopedic program surgeons about being able to expand that service up here. We will have more operating rooms and procedure rooms as well, and we'll be having a medical day clinic that can support outpatient services. Huntsville's services will, again, they'll have diagnostic services, imaging services to support their emergency department and inpatient area. The MRI, forgot to mention that, the MRI is a pretty exciting thing. We're hoping to have it here in the region in less than a year. Long awaited for that. It is in Huntsville. The reason it's in Huntsville, it has to be associated with the stroke designated hospital. Chemotherapy will be transferred in this model down to Bracebridge because it's an outpatient service. This is one that, things are going to change over the next 7 or 8 years, and we don't have a crystal ball. This may be something that, depending on, cancer treatment modalities, may change, and we may need to look at, growing that program. We may need to look at different models that are there, but for now, chemotherapy will be at Bracebridge. Dialysis, we have a satellite dialysis outpatient program with our regional program at Aurelia. This is going to stay in Huntsville, and again, it's very similar to the rationale around stroke. It's the geography of the next satellite to the north and to the south of us. And again, we've had great discussions with our renal network folks on this. This is possibly a service that may not even need to be in hospital 10 years from now. Again, we're not trying, we don't have all the answers, but right now we're going to, in this model, leave it there based on the feedback that we've had from them. In this model, we will be keeping our inpatient surgeries. So again, complex surgeries that need longer than a couple of days length of stay, and usually have other complexities, not even maybe related to their surgery, but to other medical reasons. So we only do about 800 inpatient surgeries that we're projecting in 10 years. So as you can see, the bulk of surgeries that happen in community hospitals are outpatient services. Couple of things I'd like to mention, because I always forget this one. Both hospitals, we are having a heliport at both hospitals, and that seems to be a question that comes up and I always forget, so wanted to make sure I said that. In this model, we've also looked at general surgery on call at both sites. Again, it's a model. We know we've got a lot of discussion to have ahead of ourselves, but we wanted to ensure that we had that so that we didn't need to be moving people up and down for general surgery emergencies. So just to highlight some of the new and expanded services in this concept, the expanded emergency departments are there. That's what we're planning regardless of what model we have. We're looking at having areas in our emergency departments that we can fast track people through. This is a common practice in state-of-the-art emergency departments across the province. Fortunately, we haven't been able to do that because our footprints are so small. So this will be a real improvement in terms of patient flow through the emergency department. The other area is improving our mental health areas in our emergency departments. Right now, the team has done a great job at trying to take rooms and make them a little bit more conducive for when people are having a mental health crisis to come in and have privacy and be cared for. In our new emergency departments, we're definitely going to be able to do a lot more improvement there. In terms of outpatient surgery, I've shared the excitement about concentrating day surgeries, being able to expand services like joints, replacements, expanded orthopedic trauma, gynecology, the list goes on. There's some things we don't even know today that we currently may be doing as an inpatient that will be an outpatient procedure. And diagnostic services, opportunities to expand our diagnostic imaging and other diagnostic services. Up north in Burkes Falls, we actually run a general x-ray machine and we do lab work up there. There's a lot of communities that we service, as you saw on that map. We'd like to be able to build the capacity to do more outside the walls of our hospitals so that services like this can be close to home. We will be increasing our mammography services. We heard a few months ago the screening criteria has changed, so more and more women are going to be needing mammograms, which is great. What we'd like to do is not just offer the service at our ambulatory center, but actually wrap around services that are important, other important features for women's health. We also, in our new buildings, want to make sure we're being really open to our Indigenous communities and looking at practices that we can integrate, not only in the design of the building, but actually in some services. So that is definitely high on our priority. Virtual care integration. Every room, every space in these 2 new hospitals will have the ability for virtual care. This will be important for being able to talk to each other across sites, talk to each other and with other organizations. We all know during COVID that this was a lifesaver in some situations for people that couldn't get out and needed to have consultation. So we're looking at, for our Muskoka Algonquin healthcare, with 2 sites, an increase of 34 beds. We're currently sitting at 123, sorry. And so yes, we're increasing the beds. I'd just like to remind folks though, the future of healthcare, and we're seeing it already across the province, across other jurisdictions, it's not just about beds. In fact, it's less about beds. It's about being able to provide outpatient services, outreach services. The acute rehab is an important component of what I've talked about, because when people do get in a hospital, nowadays you want to be able to get them feeling better and get them home and not have to wait around in a hospital until they're ready. So we feel the focus on focusing staff on patient groups with like diagnosis, like obstetrics, like rehab, like our outpatient surgery, really does provide an opportunity for better staffing, better staff satisfaction when you're doing the work that you're trained. And so we do feel that there's the opportunity, and in my discussions with other folks, this could be a model of attracting new specialty physicians and staff as well. And at the end of the day, I truly believe that this is a model. This model, or something similar to it, really will enhance the patient experience. Work ahead of us. As I said, 7 to 8 years ahead of us, a lot could change. Definitely in healthcare, we want to make sure that we're flexible, but we're just at the start of this journey, and we really do want to make sure that we get the concept right so that we can get through our proposal and then start working on other aspects of the build. We have heard about transportation. We heard about transportation long before we were talking about redevelopment. And we've had some great early discussions with the district around transportation needs for many things, not just healthcare. And we also know the importance of building really strong partnerships. We've got a great reputation of that with wonderful partners across the region. We need to do more of that if we're going to have a model that's going to put care closer to home and not inside the walls of a hospital. So our next steps, we've come out with a proposed model to look at. We've heard lots of feedback, and we are going to continue to listen to the feedback and modify as we go on. So these are the sessions that we're having. We've got some sessions with physicians, nurses, and we will continue to have those that conversation. We want to get this right, and we want to try to do it so that the project maintains the momentum. The dates that were in there were our target dates, and again, if we have to adjust those dates, then we will adjust them. And we still know that the prize at the end of the day is $967 million, and that's a lot of money. And we've got a great opportunity here to build a healthcare system with 2 acute care hospitals. This is the ministry's capital planning journey, and we're at stage 1.3. We're doing functional programming. We've got the site selection completed, and we've got a plan for almost all of the 225 million. So we're hoping that within this timeline, we can stay on track. This is a schedule that we are on with Infrastructure Ontario. So we have dates on that schedule, and the date for shovels in the ground is 2029. If we've got a bit of latitude to do a bit more consulting at the front end so that we get it right, I'm sure that we'll have the assurance that we can make up some of that time in the other areas. I always like to talk about local share because that's the commitment that all of you are making to these new hospitals. We have a local share financing plan that covers off 10% of capital construction, and it also covers off all of the equipment needs, any land that we have to buy related to redevelopment. A lot of people don't realize, but we don't get any money from the ministry, never have, for capital equipment or capital, certain capital projects, certainly like this, we're getting a good amount of money. But every year, our great foundations, they go out, they raise money, they replace beds, they replace cardiac monitors, etc. And that's the work that they do every year. They're also part of the planning with the 225 million. Just want to give them a shout out for everything they do every year. And the hospital also has a contribution, so we have some property that we're able to sell and use that to contribute to local share. The district through taxes, and then our friends up in Almaguin, Mayor Ward, thank you for coming tonight. They also have contributed to the local share. They're not even in our district, and they have put money in the pot. And then Bracebridge and Gravenhurst and Huntsville have added even more money to the pot. So really want to thank the work that people have done on this. I can tell you when I'm talking to colleagues who have capital redevelopment going on, and they ask how, I'll ask them how are they doing with their local share, and they haven't even started. And not that we have money in the bank, but we have a plan, and that goes a long way to the ministry to show our commitment as a community to this redevelopment. So again, I think everybody knows this information, but just a great opportunity to remind folks. Site selection was completed last year, and 300 Pine Street was selected. Criteria down the side is just a few of the criteria that were used in site selection, and happy with the choice forward. Made in Muskoka Healthcare, I'll end on the same note that I started on, is more than just building 2 new hospitals. It goes well beyond that. I've showed you a proposed model or a model that anybody wants to come up with, that we can be innovative, that we can be looking to the future of what healthcare is 10 years, not today. New and enhanced services. We've got a great opportunity to keep care closer to home. We want to make sure that we're developing something in the future that's going to be very attractive to people who want to come and work and live in Muskoka. And the important thing as well is healthcare going forward is all about integrating, and it's not just about hospital providing services, but it's about how we work with our community and our partners to provide that care. This we'll move into question and discussion. We'll leave this up. This is look forward to any emails that you want to send us, and turn it over to Maureen. Thanks.
Thanks, Cheryl. We'll ask Mayor Maloney to say a few words.
Well, thank you very much, Maureen, and thank you, Cheryl, for your presentation. First of all, I want to appreciate the fact that you were able to quickly turn around a second meeting for the residents of Bracebridge and surrounding area that were not able to participate on Tuesday of last week, and also pleased that there's probably 300 or 400 people watching tonight by Zoom. I think that you've highlighted the importance of community engagement through this process, and I'm also pleased with Mac's commitment to take the time necessary, as you say, to get this right. It's an important decision for Mac, it's a equally important decision for our communities, and appreciate the fact that you've recognized that to take the time to get a model that works for healthcare in all of our communities is an important next step, so thank you for that. I won't go through my comments of last Tuesday. I will say that I do appreciate that folks are totally engaged in this process. It's evident by the number of people that are here tonight, the folks that are watching by Zoom, and the probably 400 or 500 people that were here last Tuesday. So without kind of taking the time and the mic to take away from the time that we want to get questions, I will say, again, as I said last Tuesday, in order for us to get the best out of tonight's meeting, it's important that we keep our focus when we have questions. We keep our focus on the point that you want to make or the question you want to ask, and we do that respectfully, and we do that through the mic that's here. It doesn't help the conversation by comments or interruptions. I want to hear what Mac has to say. You want to hear what Mac has to say. Collectively, we want to be able to understand. We want to provide the feedback, and they want to hear that feedback. And we can only do that through the process of a respectful conversation. So with that, I will turn the mic back over to you, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Mayor Maloney. I have my trusty 2-minute timer on my phone. We will be asking people to approach the mic and stand in line to ask questions. If there is anybody in the audience that's not physically able to stand or stand in line, please raise your hand and I will come to you with the portable mic and I will fit you in between. So remember, everybody has 2 minutes, and I will stand up when the 2-minute time period is over. Okay?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you there's a great crowd here. My name is Peggy Peterson. I'm from Huntsville, Ontario. I've been following all of this for 10 to 12 years, our hospital, the jiggling back and forth. So I've been watching the last 10 to 12 years, the juggling back with the hospital conversation, 1 hospital, 2 hospitals, okay. So we all have been there through this whole thing. So I'm going to tell you right now, Huntsville does not need a new hospital. We have all kinds of room. If we have to expand, we can expand. Bracebridge, on the other hand, needs a great, full-service, new hospital. I hear you talking about funding. We don't have any tax money for you. Nobody has any extra tax money. There isn't any more money for this. And I want to say, and I want out of respect for Dr. Lynn Sargent, who's a well-known physician who's passed away, and he has told us over years and years and years, the only measure of the town is its hospital. Never give up your hospitals. So I do have a question, because I was looking at your statistics and where you're all coming from, and I want to say, I have a solution for the funding. How about we all surrender 10% of everybody's salary on the Sunshine List and we cover the costs? So I do have a question. Where do your statistics of an increase in emergency room visits in the Huntsville Hospital and Bracebridge Hospital of 3,000 per? Where are the emergencies coming from? Are they coming from the shots?
Just for the record, I would definitely give up my entire salary as the MAC board chair. As you know, the entire board is volunteer, so I'm happy to give up my seat.
In regard to the source of data for the projections, those come from the Ministry of Finance. That's what's required of hospitals across the province for developing any submissions. That's what's used, and the consultants have used those consistently throughout the whole process. Oh, sorry, you asked about don't build in Huntsville. Neither hospital is up to code. Neither hospital has the capacity today to do the types of service.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, the buildings themselves are not up to code, and the buildings themselves need to be replaced. I think as Tim would be able to enunciate very clearly, the clinical services cannot continue to be provided in substandard facilities.
Lorraine Etler, Bracebridge. So to your point, sir, I don't know where you're coming from with that, because I just went through a 4-month battle with my sister who passed away December 18th. St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto is a very, very old hospital, and they do top-notch brain surgery. So how can that happen in a substandard hospital? I don't know what you're talking about. My question tonight is, with this new model, I am concerned for South Muskoka Hospital Foundation. How are they going to continue to raise money? The word on the street is, we're not going to donate to our hospital foundation. So what are you going to do? Are you going to amalgamate that with Huntsville because we can't raise our money for our share of the new hospital? How are you going to address that? My second point is to Dr. Abdel Rasik. I asked him after the meeting, the last Bracebridge meeting, I asked you, has any doctors been reprimanded for speaking out regarding this new model? And you assured me no one had been reprimanded for that or silenced. Dr. Richard Daniel, a Gravenhurst doctor, wrote in a letter to Mac that he is concerned about that. 2 days following the meeting in Bracebridge, I was privy to read the letter from a Huntsville physician that got severely reprimanded by you for speaking the truth about what's going on in the Huntsville hospital. Never do you talk about problems in the Huntsville hospital. You don't stand up there and say that the Huntsville emergency department almost closed over the Christmas holidays because you had no staff. If it wasn't for extending the contract to your travel nurses, that hospital, the emergency department would have been closed. So my question to you, Dr. Abdel Rasik, is this. Why did you tell me that no doctors have been reprimanded when I know there has been? The doctor in Huntsville has left, and I know there's doctors in Bracebridge that have been reprimanded by you, and you have silenced the doctors. So please tell the truth. And my other question is, why do we have a chief of staff who's from Aurelia?
Thanks for those questions, Lorraine. The question regarding the foundation, I was able to discuss with the foundation, and they have asked you to direct any questions to them. They have been part of the process all the way along. They are part of the local share committee, and they have been part of this discussion. Lorraine, thank you for your questions, and now on to Dr. Abdelrazak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. First of all, yes, I live in Aurelia, but I've provided service in North Simcoe, Muskoka for 20 years. I actually set up gynecologic surgery in Bracebridge 14 or 15 years ago. You can ask my colleagues who provide obstetrical care and surgical care across Bracebridge and Huntsville about the service I provide at both hospitals. So that is well answered. In terms of hiring professionals to provide healthcare leadership and healthcare administration, there's a long process of preparing for that. And when an organization is hiring, you hire certain individuals who can provide the job. In terms of the letter that you alluded to, that letter has nothing to do with the hospital development project, and I cannot really comment on disciplinary factors that are related to confidential human resource matters. However, no, you need to hear me. You asked the question, allow me to answer. Allow me to answer. Allow me to answer. I am being truthful. Allow me to answer. In interactions, if there are inappropriate interactions that do not meet the code of conduct, these have to be addressed. You need to consider not only one segment of those professionals who work within Muskoka and Algonquin Healthcare, but all the other sectors as well. The nurses, the support staff, the administrators, and if there's something that is a breach, that is addressed. It has nothing to do with input about capacity development, and you have been misinformed, and I cannot comment on confidential HR matters. Thank you.
So, Dr. Abdul-Razak, how many years have you been credentialed at Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare?
14 or 15 years.
Thank you.
My question is for surgeons or family docs whose patients have been transferred to Huntsville. How do they round on their patients? Are they expected to be driving back and forth on the highway? Chief of staff also.
So currently, our surgeons and many of our physicians provide services at both sites. The vast majority of patients who are admitted to hospital are under the care of what's called the hospitalist physician. So 8 out of 10 patients admitted to Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare, both sites, is under a hospitalist physician. That would be a physician who provides care for somewhere between 15 and 25 patients. And so that model is growing more and more across Ontario. And so the admitted patients would be under their hospitalist, and the rounding physician would be the hospitalist physician.
So the family doctor doesn't check on their patients or the surgeon?
8 out of 10 patients who are admitted to Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare now at both sites are not directly cared for by their primary family physician.
And my other question about the knees and hips, don't those patients stay in hospital?
So currently there are techniques where these patients have a same-day procedure or require one-night stay. Our current operating rooms do not have the capacity to provide joint replacement. In the newer model, the joint replacements would be provided, and these patients either go home same day or stay 1 or 2 or 3 nights.
In the 14 beds or in Huntsville?
No, in the 14 beds. The plan for the beds in Bracebridge is to serve short-term admissions from the emergency room and short-term admissions from surgical services, be it a joint replacement or a gallbladder or a hernia repair. Patients who need shorter, and 95% of surgical patients treated at Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare do not require admission to the hospital. Where are those stats? The stats are available at Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare. These are the stats that our consultants have used, and you can ask the surgeons as long as you know them well.
Is there anyone in the audience that isn't able to stand in line that would like the microphone? Okay, just checking. Go ahead. Dr. Mason.
Great. So my name is Michael Mason. I'm a physician in Bracebridge where I have a family practice. I practice emergency medicine. And I look after my own patients at our local hospital. I'm also the assistant program director of the Northern Ontario School of Medicine's Rural Family Medicine Residency Program, where I oversee family physicians training in the towns of Parry Sound, Huntsville, Bracebridge, and Gravenhurst. The Rural South NOSM Family Medicine Program is one of the most sought after and competitive rural teaching programs in the province. In fact, in 21, we were awarded a provincial teaching award of excellence due to the overwhelming interest and due to the overwhelming interest of medical students wanting to come here. We are now a standalone rural residency program within the Northern Ontario School of Medicine as of this year. We've also had preliminary talks of starting a family medicine teaching unit whereby residents can see and they can follow their own patients at the clinic and also in the hospital, almost akin to them having their own roster of patients, which could help those patients or those people in Gravenhurst and Bracebridge who currently do not have a family doctor. One of the other benefits of such a program is that of recruitment, and not just for family medicine jobs, but also for hospital-based jobs. In fact, the last 3 graduates of the program have decided to stay and work with us full-time here at South Muskoka. So those being Dr. Cole Krensky, who's one of our hospitalists, Dr. Rachel Greer, one of our emergency physicians, and Dr. Jennifer Hamill, who's one of our family doctors. I have confirmed with the NOSM program director that with South Muskoka only having 14 inpatient beds, and with the uncertainty of not knowing who are going to be the most responsible physicians of these patients, that the family medicine teaching program in Bracebridge and Gravenhurst will likely dissolve. Comprehensive rural family medicine training, including clinic and inpatient medicine, and ideally prenatal care and obstetrics, is a cornerstone of rural family medicine teaching. I attended a Zoom call last week. It's 2 minutes, one and a half minutes. I attended a Zoom call last week with other family medicine site directors across northeastern and northwestern Ontario, including the program director. And there are plans as early as July of this year to expand the number of first-year residency positions in the towns of Gravenhurst and Bracebridge, which is great news for us. There is a growing appetite amongst my colleagues also to take on NOSM residents for their 2-year journey. We also have a number of NOSM medical students that join us every year for their third year of medical training, and with potentially less preceptors and the elimination of inpatient medicine, this program is also likely in a state of flux. This is a program that I proudly graduated from in 2012, and I can say with certainty that without my 8 months of medical training here in Bracebridge, that I would be practicing elsewhere. Dr. Forrester, Dr. Adamson, Dr. Wu, and Dr. Nairn are also byproducts of this clerkship program. This is also timely given the Ford government's announcement this past Friday to increase the number of medical education spots by 70 in Northern Ontario, which would include South Muskoka since we fall within NOSM's catchment. We know that the best recruitment strategy is to train doctors locally. Recent data from NOSM shows that close to 45% of residents will stay and work in the community that they train in. I firmly do not believe that having a new state-of-the-art hospital will be enough to attract physicians and their families to Bracebridge. I have sat on the South Muskoka Recruitment and Retention Committee previously when I first started here, and I understand firsthand how challenging recruitment can be, especially in rural Ontario. Not helping matters with regards to family medicine recruitment is the fact that fewer and fewer medical students are choosing family medicine as their choice for residency. So I implore you to please reconsider the number of inpatient beds proposed with this model so we can keep medical education flourishing in the South. And my question, I do have a question here. So the question to the senior team is, knowing that recruitment is currently a problem for us, is the termination of a medical teaching program concerning for you? And secondly, if this model with 14 inpatient beds and no obstetrical care is pushed through, what concrete plan do you have to ensure that recruitment is addressed? Because a glossy new hospital will not in itself attract new doctors.
Thank you, Mike, for the question and for your participation at the user groups. And just I would like to also let the audience know that a number of the feedback that was received from Dr. Mason and his colleagues that the emergency room user groups helped to improve the plan for coverage model for the emergency room. We will have more discussions. The point you bring up is very valid, and that's how I responded to your email to me and Cheryl a couple of days ago. The issue about concern about medical education and the smaller number of beds and how that can impact that program is certainly an area that's worth considering and restudying and reassessing. But as an organization, we are very keen on investing in medical education and on enhancing the Northern Ontario School of Medicine experience at MAC. So that will certainly be more discussions around that. And to the comment about if this is pushed through, it will not be pushed through. You might have not seen that communication between me and the department chiefs, but the topic of medical education and NOSM will be one of the main disciplines that will be discussed at our Credential Staff Association meeting on February 20th. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Mason, for that. Dr. Abdulrazik just mentioned we will be meeting with all of the doctors that have credentials at Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare on February 20th to discuss these items that are being brought forward.
Okay, thank you. I was told I have only 2 minutes. I think when I declare my conflict of interest, then the time should not be counted, right? Good evening, everyone. My name is Philip Wah. I'm the CFO of Muskoka Royal Development, Inc. I need to declare my conflict of interest first before I start. Our company owned 1975. Our company owned 1975 Muskoka Beach Road. 40 acres of our land was one of the 2 shortlist land for the site selection process. On December 31st, we offered to donate our land valued at $9.6 million and $10 million of cash to build a full-size hospital on our land. If the hospital is built on our land, then our land will appreciate in value. That's the reason why we want to donate the land from the business sense. But on the other hand, the community will benefit a lot from the full-size hospital. It's a win-win situation. That's the reason why we offer to donate the land and also cash to the hospital. Once we learned that they choose another site, 300 Pine Street, which in our opinion is not good enough to build a full-size hospital due to the limitation of the road access and also the extremely high construction cost associated with building a hospital there. And then later on, we find out about the very innovative model, and then we know the reason. It is because of the geotechnical challenging feature of that piece of land. I just want to say last word. I have a page which you can pick up when you go out if you haven't done anything when you come in.
Thank you, Mr. Ma. As we've said in the 3 previous sessions, yes, there were 2 sites that were on the short list for the property. And on December the 20th, after going through a process of evaluation, through a site selection working group, through a capital redevelopment operations committee, through the capital development steering committee, and then the board, the 300 Pine Street site was selected. At the time the decision was made, both sites had a cost to the hospital. Subsequent to the announcement of that decision, you are correct. You came forward with a different position after the decision had been made. Secondarily, the reason that you are providing doesn't address the fact that we're looking for a way to create a hospital system for Muskoka that will be affordable and sustainable. The current model that we have is not, and that is why we're looking for something different and creative. So we chose a different site. I know you're disappointed, but we chose a different site. We made the decision based on criteria that, no, we made the decision based on appropriate criteria for the long-term building of a hospital.
I will translate.
Just put the microphone in and put it here. I will raise it for you. Here you go. It's all gross. Go ahead.
I'm George Chen. I is Muskoka Royal is CEO. I is English is not better. I is maybe my CFO some question translator for that somebody. Okay, is one 就是咱们非常重视这个医院，我们现在都谈的医院的设备。要的什么设施，但是如果在第一步你的钱就被人偷走了，你这个医院怎么建起来的？
Thank you, Alistair, for reminding me because I haven't asked the tough question yet. Everyone sitting up there, they mentioned that they hire a consultant to do very, very detailed study to select the site. Where's the report?
Another question 2， 就是说，我就是那个要那个 meeting 开那个东西要开。
The second question is, Alistair said, we make the offer of donation after they decide. But everyone, if you remember what you've seen on the screen, they decide in January. We offer the donation December 31st. January is earlier or December 31st is earlier.
Thanks, Mr. Chen.
You last one，因为完了，就说CF 也是个骗子，他这个整个过程我们可以叫纸上大家可以看到。
Yeah. That's why we have one demand. It's not a question. We demand the resignation of the board and the senior leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Chen and Mr. Wah. Allison Snelling, can you confirm the date that the press release was done for the site selection decision? That date was? December 21st, the press release went out on the decision, just to confirm for Mr. Wah.
Where is the report? Yeah. Very important.
You don't have to face it, but speak right into the mic. Up a bit hard. Yeah.
Does this work? I'm Katie Palakis. I formerly dispatched our ambulances here in Muskoka. As you mentioned, our hospital is full now. Our emergency department is full now. Offload delay, for those that don't know what that means, is when an ambulance brings a patient into the hospital and they are not able to respond to another call. Our nurses need to transfer care from them. And as it stands now, if an ambulance and paramedics are at the hospital and they're in offload delay, somebody could drop at the arena and they cannot respond. What you're doing is reducing inpatient beds, increasing emergency beds. How, at this time, when we have people in the emergency department for days waiting to be admitted upstairs, is this a good idea? Equally, who are you going to rely on? Who are you going to rely on to move patients? Right now, a patient can go from emerge upstairs and be admitted. When you take them out of the building, who's going to take them? An emergency response unit? In Muskoka, we have 8 ambulances. 8. 2 seasonal additional ambulances. This covers from south of Novar down to Kilworthy, Georgian Bay, almost to Carnarvon. If your family members call 911 and our 8 ambulances are running patient transfers or are unable to respond because they are in offload delay, how serious and how sad is that? Your families live here too. Equally, we only have primary care paramedics in Muskoka. That means, as you all know and are nodding your heads, that we require escorts to take them from one hospital to another. Those are your hospital staff that will be removed in an ambulance, 1 of 8. And to be clear, when 911 calls come in, MacTier, Port Carling, Baysville, those places have no ambulance. Do not make this situation harder than it already is. My question, your work ahead refers to transportation. Respectfully, you've spent $15 million in 2 years. Logistically, this needs to be explained now or you don't have a plan. What is the transportation system? Who will run the patient transport? And when your system fails, what's the contingency plan?
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Katie. We are working on it. Thank you. As a first start, we've had initial conversations with our paramedics about, number one, how do we get to advanced care paramedics, because we do know that that's probably the next step for our communities. We know that the transfers that go from site to site for stable patients will not be handled by EMS. We don't have the capacity. We're going to need to implement a solution for that. We have conversations coming up with Quinte Health. They have their own transport system in place. We've asked for the costing of that, and we've asked to start to have those conversations. We're currently in our RFP, so looking at our new contracts for services with new providers that would be coming to our area. Some of our non-urgent transfers actually offer staffed transfer services. So those would be the type of services that we would be looking at putting in place. Thank you. I probably...
My question is just, is that part of the money you budgeted for? Is this transportation plan... Let me take that one. Is that something that's part of what you've budgeted for?
So we haven't done the operational planning for what it will actually cost. We're in a... We are in a concept mode right now, and the $15 million that you're referring to is for planning. We have not spent it all, let me tell you. We just got it 2 years ago. We've got design phase, as you saw in that diagram up there. We've got to design these buildings. We've got a lot more work to do using that $15 million. So it is...
Is it on? There we go. Hello. My name is Tom Young, and I can actually say I've been the poster boy of this hospital for about 7 years. And yeah, that was kind of a pun. But anyways, the hospital's very special to me because Dr. Gupta and every person that works in the hospital saved my life, and it was very important to me. And I did stay in the hospital. And I had my family visit me here in this hospital. Dr. Gupta visited me every day. I was in there many times. In fact, he knows me better inside than he does out. He visited me every day, which was really comforting. My family doctor, Marty O'Shaughnessy, he visited me as well, which is very comforting. If I have to go to Huntsville for my stay after my surgery here, they're not going to visit me every day up there. I know that. I think the problem here, and this is strictly my opinion, I'm trying to be very, very respectful to you as the board. For a long time now, everybody thought you were working on 2 full-service hospitals. And then all of a sudden, 2-3 weeks ago, it came out somehow, I have no idea, on Facebook, this plan. No one was expecting this whatsoever. I remember, and I saw it recently where the provincial government was promising us a couple weeks ago, a couple years ago, 2 full-service hospitals. Now we've got this. I'm glad you said this is a proposal, right? Yes, there's a lot more work to get on. I think the biggest issue, I have no problem with, specialty here and there once in a while. I had to go down to Barrie for my cancer and to Orillia to get my chemo. And I understand the stroke hospital could be in Huntsville, and that's fine. But the 2 development hospitals, the way you got to develop now, are just way too far apart. Way too far apart. You've got to go back to the drawing board, in my opinion, get them closer together, and get us 2 a lot closer, more full-service hospitals here. And I would encourage you, highly encourage you, to work with these 2 gentlemen to make it happen. They've got the coin by the sounds of it, right? Work with them to make it happen. I know there's infrastructure out to their property because Muskoka Brewery has water and sewer out there. And that's right across from the old turkey farm, which is what we're calling their prop. Sorry, it's not the turkey, it was a turkey farm. But anyways, so the Royal Muskoka property. So we know there's some infrastructure out there. All right, please relook at it, see if we can get it closer together. Thank you.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Diana McConnell. My pronouns are she and her. And my question is, for me, when I saw the breakdown of the services that we'd be getting in Bracebridge, I saw the potential for hip and joint replacement, cataracts, with partners. So my question is, who are the partners? Are we talking about outsourcing these services to private for-profit entities? Because that's what the province has started doing with those 3 particular services. And yes, they'll say that it's covered under our OHIP, but we also pay taxes. And so to pay for the profit side of things, that's gonna come from us. And so I'm just curious, how is this a better model? So maybe you could answer that. Thanks.
Thank you. So thank you. Great question. This will not be a private development of surgeons providing the services. Our partners in this instance for orthopedics are in Orillia. They're the ones who've been providing our orthopedic surgery services for a number of years. And in working with them, we will be developing an expansion of what their core program is to extend the hip and knee replacements to Bracebridge.
It won't be private for profit.
It will not.
And so I have your word on the record.
We are, we're the hospital, and we are not providing for-profit private services.
With our OHIP dollars?
With your taxpayer dollars.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi. Respectfully, I believe that it is paramount that any board is 100% transparent. I have a few questions. Were any of the user groups that you described, the staff, doctors, nurses, midwives, and volunteers from South Muskoka? And how do you explain the letter that was signed by approximately 30 doctors who did not support this model? And do you have any comments on this? Then I do have one more question. Sorry. Last week at the Bracebridge meeting here, we were told that the board would make the studies and the criteria on the land and the planning public. Where are these studies? When are we going to see them?
I will start with the answer about the user groups and the physician involvement. So we had a large number of user groups that were gradually reduced, increasing the focus of each user group. We had a total of 6 user group meetings. We had 250 individuals participate in the user groups, and we had to include all sectors: physicians, nurses, midwives, patients and family representatives, administrators, consultants, and such. Physician-wise, out of every 3 physicians on staff, active or associate at Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare, 1 was invited to participate, and ultimately 1 out of every 4 participated, to 25%. That's a higher percentage than other professions, but we needed to make sure that all professions were included. Not every input that was received from physicians was implemented, because as was explained a few minutes ago, the model did change. Initially, the plan was for 2 sites that were almost identical, which could have made everybody happy. However, because of budget constraints and to make sure that the project fits within a certain criteria, we needed to make the change. And after the change, we had 2 more rounds of user groups. So a lot of the input was implemented. For example, the input from Dr. Mike Mason about emerge coverage. For example, the input from Dr. Gupta about going up from 8 to 18 beds. For example, the input from Dr. Luku about including a 4-bed level 2 IC unit. Does that mean that every feedback that was received was implemented? No, the process is still ongoing. Out of the letter that was sent out, there were a number of retired colleagues, and we take their input with great respect. However, they are not necessarily in touch with our day-to-day challenges. Out of the remaining 24 physicians, 12 of them did participate in the process. And so in total, out of the 25% of physicians who participated, approximately 50% were from Huntsville, 50% were from Bracebridge. The concerns from each site is different. The concerns from the Bracebridge team is that more of the ambulatory care and more of the surgical programs are in Bracebridge. So that means more traveling back and forth for the Huntsville or the people from northern Muskoka to southern Muskoka. And the concerns from southern Muskoka is that more of the beds are in Huntsville, and such there will be travel for those being admitted. So that's to answer the issue about the physician participation and the letter. But let me clarify one point about number of admissions related to number of visits. When we say that approximately 24,000 to 25,000 visits per emergency room per site, that is based on the Ministry of Finance statistics. In terms of admissions, the rate of admission from the emergency room, someone coming to the emergency room needing an inpatient bed, that rate is 8%. The number of patients having surgeries, any type of surgery, ending up requiring a bed, that number is between 7 and 8%. These are current data. This is data that is included in our calculations. That means on average, for any individual going to any of these 2 sites, Bracebridge Hospital or Huntsville Hospital, the chance of that person requiring a bed is 5 to 7%. So just let me, let me just come to the point. Let me come to the point. Those who get admitted, the majority of those who get admitted are discharged within 3 days, but some will need to stay longer. Currently, 30% of our beds are occupied by alternate level of care patients, patients needing to go to retirement homes. So I'm happy to discuss more about the statistics at the end. After the meeting, we will stay around for one-on-one discussions and questions. Happy to answer questions about the statistics and the numbers. I answered about the physician involvement. I'll ask Elzer to comment about the studies and when they will be available.
Thank you. So in regard to your question about the report, those will be part and parcel of our submission to the ministry as stage 1.3. And in answer to the gentleman at the back with the beard who came up before, you didn't specifically ask this, but this is, you talked about in 2019 where the government said they wanted to build 2 equal-sized similar hospitals. What happened between 2019 and today was COVID. And what COVID has done to our costs is changed a lot of the infection prevention and control issues that we need to deal with in the hospital. It also means that then 90% of the beds will be private. And so that, in conjunction with the cost increases that Cheryl spoke to, have created a very difficult financial situation from a build perspective. And we got direct and very clear information from the Ministry of Health and Infrastructure Ontario. You cannot submit 2 equal-sized like hospitals. We can't afford it. You need to do something different, novel, and innovative. And that's where we're at today.
Can you hear me? It's a great segue for me because I'm here to help you. We have, first of all, I wanted to reflect back onto one of your slides, the travel of growth. When you mentioned that the 2 sites innovative model revised in January 2024. So that was the time when you were revising it, not a decision. And reviewed at user group round number 6. But besides all that, if we needed money to support our new hospitals, why would you not sell the property that you have and take this gracious offer of 40 acres and $10 million? Why would you not do that? Thank you.
So what will come out in the report, and you'll be able to see that, is that both sites had both pluses and minuses, and on aggregate, the Pine Street site better suited the long-term vision for healthcare in the region with Bracebridge. I told you when the reports will be released. They'll be part of the 1.3 submission to the ministry. That's what I did say.
I was going to let him finish. Good evening. I'm Rick Struthers. I spoke the other night. Couple of things. First of all, we need to salute Graydon for hanging in because this is a difficult process. And we need to recognize that there's a lot of work being done by a lot of parties. But the real board of directors here, if you folks haven't realized it, are sitting here. These are tax-paying, voting constituents. These are the people that are going to live with the results of what we accomplish. I got a very simple question. If it works for everybody, why don't we just move the Huntsville facility to Bracebridge and the Bracebridge facility to Huntsville? I'm sure you'll see that Huntsville will be equally displeased. So you'll remember my statement last time, a bad plan is not a plan. I sat with Rob Sampson in 2003 and he said, the single biggest mistake we have in this province in the education business is we're not in the education business, we're in the real estate business and we're not very good at it. I think we need to step back. I want to see one of these people on the board for every one of you, a shadow. Okay? These people don't have your medical expertise, but they do have expertise as citizens and taxpayers. Thank you very much for your time.
We're okay? Hi. Yes, I'm going to address you turning around this way. I did this the other night because I'm addressing you guys. Anyway, I'm Lynn Emmons, and I'm just going to do a little brief review very quickly of something that I wrote up over the last 24 hours. First of all, you did make a mistake because it wasn't the Ministry of Health that decided about the 2 sites. It was the Capital Plan Development Task Force that was set up by the MAC board originally that said 2 sites unanimously was the way to go, and that was 2 acute care sites. So what exactly does that mean? Acute care is a level of health care in which a patient is treated with a brief but severe episode of illness for conditions that are the result of a disease or trauma and during recovery from surgery. Acute care settings include emergency departments with attached surgical services, intensive care inpatient beds, and diagnostics. Now, you have proposed a model, which I don't know how long you worked on it, because up until October, apparently there were 2 sites available, but now suddenly there's 1 big site and 1 little site, of which you're considering this Bracebridge site an acute care hospital. So, here's a vision about the future. I have to sit. Can I sit?
Sure.
Good.
You know what? Let's do that.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, this current model for the Bracebridge with 14 patient in-beds and 4 intensive care beds is a dangerous model. It has a potential to increase mortality and morbidity exponentially. Does this decision to give South Muskoka an emergency department without a functioning or attached surgical capabilities make any sense? So here's a new model. Since there are 76 inpatient beds in Huntsville in the proposed model and 14 medical surgical beds between the 2 sites, why not have a total bed count of 90 beds? So that gives each site 45 medical surgical beds. Do the same thing with the intensive care beds. There's a total of 14. That would leave 7 in Bracebridge, 7 in Huntsville. The obstetrical beds need to be equal in each site. Surgeries requiring inpatient stay as well as on-call emergency surgeries need to be at each site, Bracebridge and Huntsville. Huntsville can then keep their 37 activation beds, which, by the way, are all the ALC beds that are now causing our hospital not to be able to push the patients through from emerge into the hospital. ALC, you can keep them. And there are 14 acute rehab beds, which is fine because you've got the stroke assessment. But Bracebridge keeps all the day surgery, all of the same day scheduled surgeries, and the procedure rooms such as chemotherapy, endoscopy, and infusion beds. Now, I want to just, am I close to being the end? I'm done. Let me just tell you, this SHARE working group that came up with the plan to put all our money, the ones that are proposed donation to this new build, we're building on the idea of 2 acute care sites, not on 1 large site and 1 small site. And so I say defund the proposal, because if you don't get the money, the $225 million from us as citizens, no matter how you get it, through the foundation or through the town, then you can't build. So get back to the drawing board, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Michael Driscoll. I'm in Bracebridge. Couple of quick questions. One is, what's the estimated cost for each site? What's the estimated cost?
I don't have the breakdown right
you must
at
have
fingertips.
That. What's the cost? You're in charge. Tim, what's the cost? And you're running the show? Okay. Second question. What happened?
We have a capital budget of $967 million to build 2 hospitals. We are not dividing up money here and there. We will have to look at that down the road, but we do not. We've got an envelope of money here to build 2 hospitals. Does it matter how much we're spending on each site?
You better believe.
Okay, good.
What planet are you on?
Thank you. That's an important message.
Okay. Yeah. Secondly, what happened to the previous plan that I unfortunately happened to be part of, that had 2 full-service hospitals, one replacing the Bracebridge site on site? Drawings were done. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' dollars were spent. That estimate, I think, was what, 560 or something? I went back to staff and said, this is $1 billion before they dig in the ground, guaranteed. I said, you talk about changes in healthcare. I was the only one, despite infection control being in that meeting, that said, how would you build a hospital that you have to walk through acute care to get to ambulatory care? And then COVID comes. We'd already been through SARS. This was done. Architects were paid. Drawings were done. Models were done. I said to the previous CEO that nobody is going to have a hospital with 139 beds again because everything is going to ambulatory care. Orthopedics isn't going to be in hospitals. Plastics is not going to be in hospitals. They're not doing it now. They're doing it in clinics. So this model you got is beyond from another planet. Lastly, sorry, I don't mean to be rude, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. There's too many things. I will gladly volunteer to take your position on the board. I'm not kidding, but only as board chair. Only as board chair, not a backroom seat. And I'm not kidding, I'll gladly take it, because it will change.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn, and I'm from Muskoka Lakes, and I'm a registered nurse in obstetrics at the South Muskoka Memorial Hospital. I'm also a mom and a wife and an active member of this community. I was born at the Bracebridge Hospital, and now I deliver babies and even had my own in the same building I was born in. I am proud to live and work here. Obviously, I am offended by Mac's decision to tell myself and my colleagues that our jobs were becoming obsolete at the same time that it told the public, but my concern goes deeper than my own future and livelihood. The women and families of Muskoka deserve to have their health taken into consideration. While single-siting the obstetrics program affects all of Muskoka, the residents of southern Muskoka are being disproportionately affected. The residents that I currently serve will not go to Huntsville. They will go south or they will go west, but they will not go to Huntsville. No one is going further away from a NICU or a pediatrician when the drive is the same or longer. So while I don't believe that my patients will drive north, let's pretend for a moment that they will. My question is multi-pronged. What is the plan for transporting patients from the South Muskoka region to Huntsville for their prenatal care week to week? Because many of our patients do not drive, and I have personally cared for multiple women who have walked long distances to their appointments every week. Additionally, what are your plans to recoup their lost wages when they need to take extra time off their jobs to go further for care? And what are your plans for aftercare when you do an emergency C-section for a mom coming into the emergency room? Because right now, the OR and the ER staff call us. What happens when we aren't there to call?
So the first question, I just had a really great conversation with Dr. Kapos on Friday, and she had some really great suggestions for us for the Bracebridge site. So a couple things were developing prenatal clinics. There's some great models that she referenced out of Women's College, St. Joe's, Peterborough. They've got some really great programs that offer prenatal and in postpartum care, lots of clinics, postpartum mood disorders. So those were some of the ideas that she had brought to us, which we'll look into as a possibility for the Bracebridge site. As for transportation in an emergency situation, it would be via EMS. And as for regular transportation to the Huntsville site, or if women choose to go to OSMH, that would be regularly transported as people would go to their delivery site to deliver.
But that's what I'm saying. They're walking now. They
So-
can't walk to Huntsville.
So we are looking at a proposed transportation plan for patients and families. So someone who is not, who is stable would be able to use that, or EMS.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay McDougall, and I'm a resident of Bracebridge. My first question for the board is how many acres is the site that South Muskoka sits on?
11 acres.
11 acres. I grew up in the small town of Collingwood, Ontario, which is a 12.6 acre site. It has an 87-bed hospital and sees over 3.5 million visitors a year due to the influx of the mountain, Blue Mountain. My question to the board is, if a small town like Collingwood can renovate and keep up with the infrastructure there, they have MRI, they have surgeries, they also have fast track services, then why can Bracebridge not renovate the site that is existing? I've heard the excuse, oh, it's because of code, it's because of code. You know what? At one point, Collingwood was the same size as Bracebridge is now. If it has to do with code, then how is the Bracebridge Hospital operating today if it's not up to code?
Can I answer?
My second question is on February 3rd, this past Saturday, my father was admitted to the Bracebridge Hospital because he walked around my table and mishaply broke his hip. He sat in the Bracebridge Emerge for over 24 hours waiting for a bed. Bracebridge was full and could admit him, but there he was with a broken hip laying in an Emerge stretcher. Huntsville couldn't take him, and they were waiting on a bed at RVH. I was personally at RVH on Monday, and I walked through the surgical ward, and I can't tell you how many beds I saw that had no people in them. So if Bracebridge is full and RVH can't take them, then how is it that you suggest that Huntsville is going to take this influx of patients? My last question is in regards to the having no obstetrics. On January 7th of 2018, at 1:55 a.m., my daughter-in-law called me. She was in full labor. Her, the midwife suggested they go to the hospital. I walked down a single lane on Manitoba Street to my daughter-in-law's house. From there, they were less than 12 minutes to South Muskoka Hospital. She literally walked in, had to sit down while her husband parked the car, and delivered that baby right inside those doors. How is the emergency staff going to deal with situations like that? And is it not going to lead to more infant deaths if you're not prepared to handle all of this?
So
3 questions there. Who wants to lead?
Yeah, I'm going to lead with the Collingwood story, so thank you for that, because I'm working pretty close with the CEO from Collingwood. They too are in redevelopment. They've already submitted their stage 1.3, and according to Mike, they're at 35 acres is what they're planning their new development in. Yeah, it will, as both of these hospitals will as well. In terms of your experience with obstetrics, and I can speak to this because I have worked emergency, it is part of our training to do emergency deliveries. So babies, will decide where they want to be born. We've all seen those stories, and ambulance and, in very strange places that babies can be born. Our emergency department will be fully equipped to deliver in an emergency a baby with all of the equipment that's needed. And if there's training that's needed for staff because it's not something that they're familiar with, we will practice that. Like they should be practicing anything in the emergency department that they don't get very often. I forgot your other two questions, I'm sorry. But there's lots of hospitals that don't have an obstetrical unit in their hospital, and they have emergency. We've explained why we are looking at single-siting obstetrics. Oh. So, yeah, okay. I'll talk to you about the RVH and empty beds. I'd love to hear about it, because that's pretty unique nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah. So my name's Amanda. I am a registered nurse, and I recently gave birth to my son in October at the Bracebridge Hospital. I came in an active labor. I had a 20-minute drive and ended up having an emergency cesarean section because he started to become in distress. So I am very thankful to everybody there that was supportive of that. So my question, I did ask this in Huntsville, and I would just like to pose it again because I felt it wasn't quite answered. So Dr. Mason pointed out, thank you, Dr. Mason, about liability. So labor and delivery is one of the highest liability departments with anesthesia and with neonates. So I'm just wondering what kind of care is going to be provided at the Bracebridge Hospital if a woman has to stay, because it is about a 2-day stay. Who is going to be looking after this patient? If there is a preterm infant going down the highway to Aurelia or anywhere else that is available, now you are separating the mother and the child if they have to go to Huntsville to stay, if there is nobody to look after them in the 14 beds at Bracebridge. So what are we going to do about that? And I'm just wondering, with the liability for labor and delivery, are your staff prepared in the emergency room to look after these patients? Are the number of the emergency visits that are proposed going to do they include the number of triage obstetrical patients that are going to be required to see the emergency room? Are there going to be beds available for that? And what kind of transportation is going to be available for them in case that they do have to go somewhere else? And the other question is the diagnostic imaging in Huntsville. The numbers have gone down from what they currently are showing to what they are in the proposed model. Why are they going down? Are you going to have obstetrical patients have their planned diagnostic imaging in Bracebridge? So now you're asking residents from Gravenhurst, Port Carling to go to Bracebridge but deliver in Huntsville. Is that what are they going to do? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, and thank you for sharing the experience. As a senior team and as someone who provides obstetrical and gynecologic care, we have great appreciation for all the care providers at both sites. I've worked closely with them for 20 years and on site since I established that service for 13, 14 years. And my first visit to Bracebridge Hospital to provide an emergency coverage for a C-section was even before I started providing gynecologic surgery in Bracebridge, 3 in the morning, very similar to the experience that you mentioned. So to answer your second question first, in terms of diagnostic imaging, the numbers in the proposed model appear lower in Huntsville because the vast majority of outpatient diagnostic imaging will be in Bracebridge. However, prenatal and postnatal care is planned to be available across all the communities, and prenatal and postnatal ultrasound and such services are planned across both communities. In terms of the risk and the liability, demography is not really in our favor. We have approximately 100 deliveries in Bracebridge, approximately 200 in Huntsville. If we had 200 and 300 or 400 and 700, there would be no question about where obstetrics needs to be focused or whether or not it needs to be focused. At a birthing unit with less than 100 deliveries a year, that there is a risk related to quality and safety in terms of maintenance of competence. And the vast majority of obstetrical units in Ontario with less than 100 births a year have been consolidated. This is just a fact of what's happening across Ontario. Now, even if obstetrical service will be focused on one site or the other, there will need to be provision for 24/7 coverage for potential obstetrical emergencies at both sites. So if, for example, and again, this is a proposed model, if, for example, the proposed model focuses obstetrics in Huntsville, there will need to be a plan for 24/7 obstetrical coverage in Bracebridge. These are discussions that will be had on ongoing basis with the obstetrical care providers and with obstetrical nurses to make sure that such an emergency delivery or an emergency C-section can happen safely. So I do not have a finite answer for that second question, but the discussions are ongoing, and that's why this is an iterative process and more discussions are happening with the care providers.
Hello, my name's Jacqueline. Thank you. I have a couple questions to kind of piggyback on what those ladies were saying. How can you say your model is about patient care when you're asking women to drive an hour plus coming from the Port Carling area, especially if weather's bad, and that is laboring? And how is this patient care, and how can you ask the population to be okay with that? As stated earlier, it seems that EMS will be delayed to the call due to the lack of units and possible transfers out of Bracebridge. And then also to piggyback on the statement about hospitals closing OB units, I'm kind of curious as to what hospitals you're referring to, because I feel all the hospitals down south, Alliston, which is even a smaller hospital than Bracebridge, has an OB unit, and EMS is directed to go bypass ER to go to OB with a labored or pregnant woman. And that is also fact at RVH, OSMH, Southlake, and Barrie. All the hospitals surrounding this area.
All these hospitals have higher number of deliveries than more than 100. Like Aurelia is at 1,200.
Really aside, because it's a step down from sick.
RVH is 2,400. I do not have the number for Alliston, but the information just came as recently as today that the majority of less than 100 births per year are consolidated. Now, we will have further discussions. And just, there are no biases here. We want to reiterate that until 4 to 6 months ago,
but I think you also
the plan model was for two sites that are almost identical. But the change was based on what is available, how to make the best use of the resources for Muskoka as a region. So we are happy to engage in more discussion and more modification, but knowing that there are certain parameters that we have to work within. I can't remember your other question, but I'll be here. I'll be here after, and I'm happy to answer.
It was mostly just how you can expect young families to be okay with having kids.
Now I remember. Yes, someone driving from Port Carling. It is not the best situation to drive for 45 minutes. It is not, and for transportation between the two sites, and again, there's no finite plan about that, but there will need to be two types of transportation available and included. That is a given. One will be emergency transportation, and that cannot rely on EMS, because we know that EMS is already stretched. If we're going to have two sites that complement each other, we will need to have transportation for emergency patient between sites that is operated and run by Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare. And the second type of transportation...
Wouldn't that also be privatization of emergency services?
No, there's no privatization. We are speaking here, this is a public hospital, speaking about the public system. The second type of transportation will be for families and for staff and visitors who want to go from one site to the other to visit a loved one. So these are the two types of transportations that will need to be part of the plan. Thank you. I'm not the finance person.
Good evening. Alan Clark from Bracebridge. You mentioned you want a different and creative solution. We have a proposal to offer to our board here tonight. That is a way to resolve our differences and deal with an out-of-control cost of our current plan. This will take a few minutes more than my 2 minutes, but I think you'd be interested in what we have to offer. And then we would like to ask for your support in requesting that the board consider a new way forward. So, we need to address the elephant in the room here tonight. That is the massive cost of our current plan to build 2 new hospitals. We did not know this when we started. We know it now. It is closing in on $2 billion. This is not affordable. Our 25% share here in Muskoka would be $500 million. Our 75% share as Ontario taxpayers would be another $1.5 billion. The board did not know this when they started. It is not their fault. Circumstances changed. We wanted a 2-hospital plan. Costs changed. Our healthcare model has changed. Let us not chain ourselves to our old model. Let us embrace change and move forward. A new healthcare model is a distributed model. This model fits Muskoka well. We are a widely distributed community. Our old centralized model is not working for us in Muskoka. It is not working for us in Ontario. It is not working for us in Canada. But we here in Muskoka have an opportunity to show leadership to both Ontario and the rest of Canada with a new healthcare model, a distributed model that will bring healthcare closer to our communities, not further away. And it will do it at a price we can afford. To start this, we need 2 things. Here's the point. First, we need to keep the 2 hospitals we have. We cannot afford to demolish the millions of dollars that we have invested in them already. But second, we need to optimize the efficiency of our current hospitals. Our plan is to create additional secondary care beds to fix the bottlenecks in our critical care and emergency departments. Right now, as you've said, 30% of our hospital beds are filled with non-critical care patients. So, our request to the board tonight would be, could you cost out a new 5-site model using 2 of our current hospitals, but adding 3 secondary compassionate care nursing facilities to be located in each of our 3 communities, Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, and Huntsville. This would be a major step in rolling out a future, more distributed healthcare model. We have seen the popularity of Andy's House here in Port Carling. We have seen success of our nursing stations here in Ontario. We have seen the popularity of our home care programs.
Mr. Clark.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We identified that we needed to be out of here at 9 o'clock. In order to finish tonight's meeting, our MPP Graydon Smith would like to say a few words. I am very sorry that we were unable to answer all your questions.
Thanks.
Sorry, everyone didn't get a chance to ask their question tonight. As I said last week, this is a great opportunity for people to be out and asking questions, and I'm glad you've done that. I've had a lot of people contact my office from all over the riding, and it's been a really good opportunity to have a lot of conversations about a lot of the things that are on people's minds. One of the things that Mac said last week was that they were going to take more time. That's one of the things that I had talked about last week as well at the meeting, and I think it's really important. It's really important that they take the opportunity to think about everything that they've heard from everybody at all these meetings, and I'm really pleased that they've committed to doing that. We do have, I think, a pretty exciting opportunity before us. I've been part of this conversation one way or another for 10 years, talking about single sites, talking about 2 sites, talking about making sure both communities win, talking about making sure that the communities of Muskoka and Almaguin are well served by healthcare well into the future. The board does not have an easy job. There has been a very varied set of opinions tonight on what we should do next. But again, I think the opportunity to take time and work with those opinions and think about how else can we approach this will really serve everybody. My job in this is to hear from you and translate those messages, and I've been trying to do that the best I can. So please keep them coming in. Please keep contacting me. Yeah, no, I understand. So, listen, I'm sorry, I can't really hear you all that well, but I apologize. Yeah, so anyways, I think more time will serve us all well in this, and I think you hear what you're saying there too. So let's work with that. And my job will be to try and not lose our place in that queue and keep things moving along and make sure that we have an opportunity to take advantage of what I think is a really exciting opportunity to shape our future healthcare in Muskoka that works for everyone. So just thank you very much to the board for this evening and for the work that they've done. Thank you very much for everyone that's reached out, whether that's doctors or nurses or people in the general public. And let's all keep talking and let's all keep working towards a solution. Thank you.